Okay, welcome everyone. This is our October Public Health and Safety meeting, and we have a couple members joining us remotely, Barbara Fortner and Mayor Deutsch. Okay, so we're going to follow our agenda and just move through things in order. So first we have a bit of housekeeping. We have our minutes from the summer that need to be approved. And I know we had a question about the quorum at some of our meetings, so could we go ahead and approve the June and July minutes? Or go ahead.
Yeah, so Councilor McGrady did challenge me out with the June and July minutes. Is I think between the transition between borough managers and members on this committee, right now there aren't written June and July minutes. What I could do if you want is have Michelle Carroll go back and look at the recordings of the June and July meetings and draft up some minutes for you that you could then review and approve at your meeting next month.
Okay, thank you. That would be very helpful.
And yes, you do have an in-person quorum tonight, so you can vote on things.
Okay, good. And how about for our second item, the August and September unofficial notes? Is that?
Yeah, if you're comfortable with those getting posted to the website, you can vote tonight to do that. Because we didn't have a quorum in August or September because we had people participating on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But I did kind of write up some notes, so if you all are comfortable with them, you can certainly vote to have them be put on the borough website.
Okay, so I would suggest that we approve those notes so they can be posted. Anyone object? Okay, so we could go ahead and do that. This also reminds me that we do need a note taker for our meeting. This role was Mona's role earlier before she stepped in. So is anyone willing to take notes?
I'm willing to do that since that's what Muna was doing for you, and I'm stepping into her position on this committee.
Oh, thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So now we're moving to 1.3, and we're going to talk about the climate action plan. And I thought we could take a few minutes to check in on our progress to date, especially with regard to borough operations. And we could, first pat ourselves on the back for what we've done, but also make sure we're clear about what we want to work on next. So we could have some discussion there. And I believe Samantha is bringing this up on the screen so that we can see this section of the climate action plan. Okay, so if we could just walk through some of this. My understanding is that in terms of the borough operations, we've already made the switch to renewable electric. The gas maybe is in progress?
I'm still looking into that. I do know that the borough, I saw on our PICO bill yesterday, the borough is not using PICO for its natural gas. It's using a company called UGI. And UGI has both traditional and renewable gas options. So I have borough staff looking into which one we're subscribed to.
Okay, great.
And if we're not subscribed to renewable natural gas, we will do what we need to do to get us onto that.
Okay, thank you. I believe you're on page 46, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me get there too.
Or actually, yeah, on page 46.
Okay, yeah, so this is section 10 in the CAP, Borough Government Actions. So if we back up, maybe we could go to page 45.
Sure.
And we can see that we have just completed, or maybe it's almost complete, the streetlight change.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that in a little bit, but major progress has been made on that. And so for the intent of this conversation, we can say that this is completed.
Okay. All right, the 10.2 is to put a price on carbon. within borough operations for the sake of purchasing decisions, and that's something that I know the EAC is discussing, and we may receive a memo from them this fall. So that's something we could consider.
That'll be a huge help for me. The biggest thing is, obviously, it's the plan that council approved, so I'm going to do my best to carry it out. Just whatever support I can get from the EAC and actually calculating what that pricing would look like, or how it would work, would be a huge help for me.
Okay. So I think that may be next in the queue. And then 10.3, this is on page 46. This is where we have the borough buildings, and we're almost finished with that once we confirm the gas.
Yeah. And actually, I do want to point out, Councilmember McGrady, I think it would be a huge help if we, per this item, let's see here, about energy audit, if we could find, if the EAC or whoever all could find someone who could do an energy audit on the building, I think that would be a huge help, especially given later tonight at the council meeting, I'm going to be proposing some substantial expenditures on the building, and so I want to make sure that if council moves forward with that we're doing things and to improve the efficiency of the building while we're doing all that.
On this building?
Yes.
Okay.
The borough, no one does that kind of work.
Oh, okay.
They do.
Oh, that's good
They
to know.
did an energy audit 8 years ago for Sabine Avenue.
Well, that's great. Well, if you all are comfortable with it, then I'll have Connie take care of that for us.
That makes sense.
Would this involve system changes like
Yeah.
HVAC?
Yeah. Honestly, the HVAC system is the biggest reason why I'm asking council for funding. As anyone who was here in person on a meeting over the summer knows, the air conditioning in this building is pretty much shot.
Yeah.
And Pannoni did do a review of that system and confirmed that we can no longer patch it or put off the replacement of that system.
Mm-hmm. I would just suggest that while you're considering this, there are heat pump, options
Yes.
for the heat side as well.
Yeah, and that's the exact sort of stuff I would love to have an energy audit done
Yeah.
to talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you attempt to get benchmarking data from PICO for borough properties, and were you able to get it?
So we are working on that. My thanks to Councilor McGreevy, who put me in touch with a contact of his at PICO.
Oh,
And I have been talking with them about that, as well as with our external affairs coordinator from PICO. So that is in progress.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I didn't realize Rob had that contact. That's great.
Yeah, that was Alan Harold.
Oh, okay.
Remember at the open house?
Oh, well, so you just figured that out. Oh, that's great.
Okay, so thank you, Samantha, for doing all this. I thought it would be worth some time for the committee, just put our eyes on this plan, because a lot of energy went into developing it, and we want to get out in front of any big purchasing decisions, as much as we can. Especially as I know we're entering the budget season, so. Okay, how about the vehicle fleet? Like, is that something we should, are there vehicle purchases on the horizon that we should be talking about?
Yeah, we will be talking tonight in the budget about vehicle purchases for both the police and the public works department. And I give credit to both departments who have worked on finding some EV options for council to consider. So my thanks to the chief and for our public works foreman, Fran Dixon, for helping me with that.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, machinery would be the last item there. I think this would mean also lawn equipment, this kind of thing.
Yeah, right now the borough does use gas-powered lawn equipment. Something I've been recently talking about with folks in Public Works is switching over to electric-powered equipment, and there is a budget proposal for council tonight for the draft budget to do that for next year.
Great. thank you. That would also cut down on noise pollution, right?
Yes.
Which has been a complaint. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else on the borough side that you wanted to raise? I mean, it seems to me as if we're making good progress on that section of the climate action plan.
Let's see, let's see what else we have here. Renewable Energy Fund, that is not in for the budget for this year, but it's something I am very interested in doing for the 2023 budget, which we can talk more about later tonight. Let's see here. Alternative utility models, that's a very large scale project that would require very in-depth conversation. So that might need to be its own agenda item on another night.
Mm-hmm.
Other actions, the Soul Smart program, that is definitely on my to-do list to work on with help from the EAC. Let's see here, making visible carbon reduction successes. I think the ribbon cutting for the EV chargers was a great step in terms of doing that sort of thing. And I think, wherever we can promote what we're actually doing in terms of the plan, I think is going to be good for us.
Do we have a way to monitor the use of those?
Oh yeah, because we get paid. Because what happens is we're charging people to use them, so we definitely know. And they give me statistics on like how long someone is at the thing and all that. Actually.
It'd be great if that became like a quarterly, piece of data that council could look at every quarter, just to watch as the use improves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's super easy to provide
Because we
that.
may want to keep our eyes on that in case we want to add more of them in the future.
Yes.
I mean, let's see here.
That's one of the EV charging stations is going to be kind of one of the bottlenecks too, at some point, for more electrical cars.
Mm-hmm.
And all the manufacturers now are building battery manufacturing facilities, and like they're sort of going all in to make electric cars. So there may be kind of like a shortage of charging at some point.
Oh, I think so. I would anticipate that in the next 5 years. They're predicting that the EV car prices will be equal to the combustion car prices within 5 years.
All right, well, I apologize. The Flow website. Oh, here we go. Nope, that's not the right website. I do not have the Flow URL right on my fingertips here, but it's very easy to log into and see that information. So. I think we're doing pretty well. I think the other items, like I said, I think a lot of these other items are additional conversations. So, I'm happy to talk about those at a later date. But I think for tonight, I think on the major action items here, with the 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, and 10.4, the borough has timelines and is making progress on accomplishing those goals.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Samantha. Barbara, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add remotely. Okay.
No, that's fine, thanks.
The goal, of course, is for the borough to model for all of the community, how to make these changes and how they're possible to do. So I really appreciate that the borough is leading in that way. So thank you. Okay. So next we would go to our police chief, John, for the status of command.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, everybody. As always, I certainly appreciate the time to give a snapshot view of the police department as it currently is. Sparing everybody's time, personnel, nothing has really changed there. I don't want to go into the details on that, obviously, just taking up time. The fleet, as Samantha mentioned, we'll probably be talking about that later tonight, but nothing has really changed there either. The one thing I would like to mention is, even though we're probably going to talk about it later with traffic concerns, is that we in October, we're going through right now an initiative to really increase traffic enforcement in the police department, to really get some good compliance out there with traffic laws in particular, overtaking or meeting a school bus. That is one of our big concerns as the schools come back, and we're seeing a lot of activity, with school buses. So the officers are going out there. We're actually re-engaging in traffic enforcement. We're going to be ramping it up. I really drive the officers with two main areas. One is traffic enforcement, and the other area is foot patrols. So each month we perform probably on the average of 200 to 250 foot patrols per month in the borough, and I believe that we probably have the record in Montgomery County. But our foot patrols help us stay as a community-connected police department. So those are our driving forces on what we do every day in order to maintain a quality of life in this community. And then obviously we're responding to radio calls, proactive patrol. I mean, there's other things obviously we're doing on top of that. But those are our two main performance measurements on what we do. What I would like to do is, save any of those concerns for, Section 3 in the agenda. Just moving down under municipal police officer certifications, we're just about to wrap up for the year for 2021. We have one or two more officers that have to go through emergency vehicle operations, which is scheduled, and one more officer that's got to do firearms training, and then that's it. We're all certified for the year. And moving down into our other training certifications and information section, just wanted to mention, obviously, about the Lower Merion coverage hours. That's always on the agenda every month for our public health and safety meeting. September saw 175 hours of coverage. That was a decrease from 185 last month. As you know, the MOU was fully completed on August the 26th. The amendment to MOU for fees agreement is in progress between the township manager and the borough manager, Samantha. So we'll have more information on that hopefully in the near future, maybe at the next meeting. And just to let everybody know, the sergeant had police supervisory in-service training scheduled for next week, but we had to postpone that to 2022 because the in-person class moved on to a remote class. And I think it's just better overall as the chief that whoever's going to do this training, it should be an in-person interaction for networking, for learning, for ability, and to establish relationships with the Justice and Safety Institute. So we have an invoice.
Penn State?
What's that?
Is that at Penn State?
Yes, Penn State's Justice and Safety Institute. So we have two options that are coming up. One is going to be offered at Upper Nazareth Borough, and the other one is going to be offered somewhere in Allegheny County in 2022. One in February, and I believe one in April. So we're just going to pick which invoice we're going to switch that training to. In terms of completed training, just for the summer, just to review, if we didn't review this last month, I know that we met right after Labor Day. The duty to intervene training was completed on June the 8th. Report writing training was completed by Officer Kelly Lynn on June the 14th. Perception of danger was completed on June the 15th. Completing the complete traffic stop sponsored by the Department of Public Safety for Montgomery County was completed by Sergeant Mike Vernaccio on August the 16th. And high-risk vehicle investigations was completed by Officer Matt Belfi and Officer Sean McCabe on August the 17th. I'm very pleased to announce that right this week we have two officers, as we currently speak, down in Atlantic City for a conference for street cop training to really improve officer safety and for these officers on how to engage, and they get an opportunity to network with people all across the country that come to this training. This training is very coveted. Every other year it's held in Atlantic City, and the opposite years it's held in Las Vegas. So we got an opportunity not only to send one officer this year, we got an opportunity to send two. We couldn't ignore the chance, even though we have a small department, and we sent two officers down because we certainly can't afford to really send an officer to Las Vegas. So it was much more affordable for us this year to send two to Atlantic City, only an hour and a half away, versus taking that opportunity next year. So that's what we did. And I'm also very pleased to announce that Officer Kelly Lynn, I think probably for many, many years in a row, will be attending the annual Mid-Atlantic Association of Women in Law Enforcement Conference. That is down in Rehoboth Beach, and that is going to commence on the week of Monday, October the 11th. In terms of equipment, nothing significant to report.
Okay.
That's about my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll come back to John a little later, I think, with traffic concern.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, so, Samantha, did you want to speak to the LED project, a brief update?
Sure, so I'm actually gonna pull up the, information in your packet. Let's see here, get that file open again. So these are the notes. So let me share my screen so people on Zoom can
Thank you.
see it as well. For some reason, when I click on share, there we go. Just doing a little slow here. There we go. So these are the pre-construction notes from early September before the project started. And basically looking at the project, there's some different types of streetlights in the borough. There are cobra heads, which are the type you traditionally see. They're the high up ones with the big head over the roadways. We have decorative lighting throughout town. We have some residential decorative lighting. And then we have a handful of area lighting, which are like your big floodlights and that sort of thing, and our traffic signals. So a big part of why we had to delay this project was the availability of the materials. So as you see by these notes, the different sorts of materials were arriving at different times. And most notably, the four-sided colonial and area lighting isn't going to be getting here for another week or two. So what's happened is these other things, the cobra heads, well basically the cobra heads and the traffic signals, they've been working to replace, and the decorative lighting and the area lighting will be changed out at the end of October. And then this is just some information about their work schedule. They've been working, as far as I know, 5 days a week, 8 hours a week, with like 1 or 2 crew people. Let's see here. The other thing I wanted to point out, here we go, pre-approved field changes. So part of the contract we have is if there's bad wiring on any of the fixtures, there's already an amount of money set aside for them just to go ahead and fix it while they're out there. I was warned by our consultant after last week that they've been finding a lot of bad wiring in the borough. So we may end up going through all of that money and may actually have to put some additional money towards it. If we go beyond that amount, that would be a change order that we'd have to approve. So we'll worry about that if we get there. Let's see here. I'm going to follow up our consultant about the web map because I don't think that's live yet, and to get a general idea of how far we are on the cobra heads. But based on what I've heard from the residents, it sounds like a large number of the cobra heads have been replaced. Let's see here. All right, and then the other sort of situation that has come up with the lights I wanted to talk to you all about is a lot of residents have been very appreciative of it. However, we have gotten some concerns from residents about the brightness of the lights. And this is one of those things where I've found that no matter what you do, you're not going to make 100% of people happy with it. So I think that's why, where possible, to have a qualitative approach to the problem is probably going to be for the best, because otherwise it's a very subjective situation. So I felt very grateful, actually. We have a borough resident who is, I believe, a lighting engineer or a lighting architect for a day job. And he called me earlier today, and he told me that when the street light got changed out, he thought it seemed kind of bright to him. So he actually owns a light meter as part of his job and went out and measured the light. Directly under the light, he had a reading of 5 foot candles. So to put that in perspective, because I know that's not a common unit of measurement, so generally in my past work, when the borough really wanted someone to illuminate something, there was a requirement that it be 1 foot candle. And the borough, New Britain Borough's zoning code actually would put people would be in trouble if they had a light source that got more than 0.3 foot candles onto someone else's property. So 5 foot candles, admittedly it's directly under the light where you measured it, but even still, that's pretty bright. So what I'd like to suggest that we do, light meters are very cheap. I had one in my last job. They're like $25, $50 to get one. I think we should get a light meter, and I think when we get concerns about the light brightness, go out and measure it. And if the light meter confirms that, hey, this is pretty bright, then the borough look into doing something about it. Talking with our consultant and our contractor, there is some availability for us to change the brightness of lights. I had to find out more from them as to what that would entail. But I do believe there would be some option for that if we verify that there are lights that are brighter than what we intended.
If they're following the contract that we agreed to, I remember that the agreement was that they were going to put that all the lights have an adjustable dimmer on them, and that they agreed that they would set the dimmer in the middle. So that, and then I think they also, it might be in the contract that there was some period of time that the borough had for, no cost adjustment of, if they decided we wanted them either higher or lower. But, so if it turns out that 5 foot candles is just going to be universally too bright everywhere, they should be able to adjust them before they install them.
Oh, great.
Unless it's too late. Did they just talk with you about that, or did you see that?
I think I do remember some conversation about the lights being able to be dimmable.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
just
really
that
good to know.
it's just that we didn't select the option that allowed them to be dimmable from the office. We selected the less costly option of allowing them, that somebody would have to go in the field and adjust them.
Yeah.
I think because the borough manager at the time didn't think it was going to be feasible to respond to each and every block and every, trying to constantly manage and adjust the lights because it's so subjective. So I think I like your approach of using the meter and being deliberative about it.
Yeah, so I can talk to our consultant and maybe find out what they would think like an appropriate level of light measurement would be that we could use as a standard beyond this period, and talk to them and let them know about the resident concerns we've gotten and see what suggestions they have on adjusting lights. If that's okay with you all.
Oh, yeah,
That'd be great.
that sounds great. Barbara or the mayor, did you want to speak to the LED streetlights?
If I may, I've got a email from a resident up on Conway who was concerned that their lights have not been replaced yet. Do you have, pardon me if I was trying to listen, it's a little hard to hear all the details on Zoom. But do you know what sections of the borough have already residential streetlights been replaced, and what is next to be done?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the, like you said, hearing was hard in some points. In the pre-construction meeting notes, there is supposed to be a link that the borough has that would show us which lights have and haven't been replaced yet. So I am going to follow up with our consultant tomorrow as well about making that map accessible to us.
Great.
Yeah,
So
I think the message to our neighbors would be that the project is not finished yet. So if you're noticing that hasn't been swapped out,
Right.
It's going to take a few more weeks because of the supply chain.
And that's what I figured out. Okay. So the lights that we're waiting on that still haven't arrived, they're not the residential lights, are they?
Some of them are. They're the decorative lights.
Decorative lights, okay.
So there's residential decorative, commercial decorative, and like the area lighting are the ones we're waiting on.
Okay.
Okay, Barbara, did you want to speak to this at all?
No, other than to say, I really think it makes sense to investigate the whole brightness issue while they're still doing installation, because maybe, you know, the ones that they install next, they can have them be at a level that we would like, so they're going back to as few of them to fix as possible. So,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Samantha, when did they begin? Was it last Friday?
They began, not last Friday, but Friday before.
Oh, okay, so they've been at it at least a week and,
Yeah.
okay. But they're still in the
Yeah.
borough working, so they could make the adjustment. Okay. All right, well, thank you for all that. So the next item is the LED, or no, the EV charger for, just some ideas that our manager was able to gather from the Flow company about possible solutions in the residential sections, you know, beyond the commercial core.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman McGreevy. So I'll share this image with, well, as soon as they'll let me, I'll share this image with everyone here. I'll just kind of explain for a minute while we wait for Zoom to do what it needs to do. So when we were at the ribbon cutting the other day, a number of residents expressed to me that while they're very happy that we now have the 2 EV chargers, they live in situations where, you know, something like that wouldn't work for them. Either they live in an area with no driveway, or they have a vehicle that the charger plugs in from the passenger side of the vehicle, or basically from a side of the vehicle opposite from where the sidewalk would be. And so for them, you know, how would they be able to charge their vehicle? So I spoke to Flow about it, our provider of the equipment, and they sent me this device here, which when you install it, the way it would work is that you could put it in, you know, where a sidewalk is or something like that. And if you see these long wires, the wires are actually long enough to go over and above someone's vehicle and plug into the side of the car without getting out in the road or anything like that. So yeah, as it says under benefits, height is optimized to reach the EV charging port regardless of the position of the car. Unique locking mechanism to protect the connector. Door unlocks on authentication. Able to withstand harsh weather. And so, yeah, so I think if we wanted to provide any options in residential streets on the borough for electric vehicle charging, this would be the model that would make sense to do that. Whereas the ones we did install are perfect for commercial areas and parking lots.
I have some thoughts about this. I've had some thoughts about how we could probably create a standard for how a resident could install their own curbside charging stations. And so some of my neighbors have, you know, have driveways, and so they've installed their own charging stations, like attached to their home, you know, that connects to their own electrical panel. And obviously it's a fuel cost for a personal vehicle, so that makes sense that, you know, that people are paying for them themselves. In the instance where the person doesn't have a driveway and they want to charge their car in front of their own home in the street, I think in the long run it makes sense to do this, to have some kind of public way that's available to visitors and residents alike. But in the short term, if a resident wants to put their own curbside charging in, I think it would be helpful for us to have some kind of standardized detail and some standards about, say, where the charging unit, how far the charging unit should be from the sidewalk. For example, like say at the line of the right-of-way, almost like a zoning kind of or building standard, and then maybe a way that the sidewalk could be trenched with some kind of panel similar to like a drainage area way or something, right, so that it's safe and has it. But if we have a standard, then people can do it. They can have a contractor install it for them, and it can be safe and appropriate. Otherwise, I think we'll end up in short time with people with wires coming across sidewalks. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we see that in some places already, which probably isn't the best long-term solution. So I'm just wondering if we might be able to find like an off-the-shelf sort of standard like that already.
Yeah, I can ask our building and zoning official if any of the existing codes already have those standards. And maybe we could go off that if the ICC or UCC already has it.
Possibly. It's almost, we already have sidewalk standards that allow for a drain and like a metal plate and a drain, like a trench drain with a metal plate. It could basically be the same thing since that's already allowed. And the plate could have a hinge and the cord could just go through.
We could do that. I think it would probably be better, having done some other projects like this. I mean, I think we probably should require, well, this is what I'm going to figure out the standards.
Yeah.
Because my opinion would be, is that we make the resident remove and replace the sidewalk block, as opposed to having the tangible grate. But I would defer to Kevin a bit on that.
Just I guess my concern is if we start installing these on the sidewalk, we already have really limited and narrow sidewalks, and we already have so many street signs and all those kinds of things. So
yeah, what would happen for the
it's
ones?
going to be more of a discussion.
For the ones that we would potentially install would connect up to the I'd have to talk to Pico about this, but I would imagine we could actually connect those to whatever power lines are running to the streetlights, as opposed to running them from someone's private property, which that'll be one of the main advantages we would have in doing it versus a resident doing it.
It's just the siting's important.
I agree. So I can absolutely talk to Kevin and figure out what standards might be out there for
That
it.
would be great, just so we can enable that, make it very trouble-free for somebody who wants to just have a contractor install it for them.
Yeah, and I would think too, this would be the sort of thing that people wanted to do. One of the proposals in the fee schedule that we're going to have eventually for council is that, no permit fees for things related to alternative energy. And I would be comfortable with the borough, we would still need to pay your fees to inspect it, but I would be comfortable with the borough waiving any fees associated with that.
That's kind of in line with SoulSmart, the SoulSmart's guidelines as well.
Yeah, that's right.
That could give us a platinum, like, grade.
It's really hard to get platinum, just so you know. But it would be a helpful thing to do.
Well, I would love to pursue both strategies. And do you have any sense, would there be grant funding, do you think, if we wanted to install some of these?
Yeah, I'd have to look at, I'm not sure how much money is left in I call it the Volkswagen money, the Driving PA Forward grant. I don't know how much money is left in that. I also don't know if this style charger will be eligible or not. It's something I could ask Flo. I mean, they would be kind of self-interested in knowing if there's any grant money available for it. So we could certainly look into that, yeah.
Or if not, I'm curious how much it would cost,
To put it in perspective, I don't know how comparable this is to what we already did. The chargers that we installed at the parking lot and on Essex averaged about $14,000 each. So obviously the grants and donations made it almost nothing for the borough. So if we were able to replicate that with these, that would be ideal.
Yeah. Okay. So I see we only have about 20 minutes, and I know we have to get to the action items. So Samantha, would you like to walk us through those 3 items under number 2?
Sure, and I mean these items, the snow routes, that probably needs a decision tonight. But the commercial property and fire program and residential rental program, if we have to table those, I think that'd be fine to table those for a month if you all feel that's appropriate.
Yeah, and we could just give you some comments about those offline.
Yeah, I think that might be the best way to do it. That way we can ensure we have enough time to talk about the snow routes, the traffic concerns, and maybe have a stretch break before the council meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
So the snow emergency routes, We received a concern from residents in the borough about a street that is currently labeled a snow route, who asked if we could take that sign down. And so, pulling on that thread, we found out that the borough's snow emergency route ordinance does not match up at all with where we have snow emergency route signage posted. So following up from our other meeting, I spoke with our public works foreman, who has been plowing snow in the borough for 30 years, or more than 30 years, about his thoughts on where we should have the snow emergency routes. His proposal was that he felt the signage was in the right locations, so he recommended that we update the ordinance to match the signage. So I've asked him to give me a list. Being only in the borough for a little over 4 months, I don't know where all the signs are. So I asked him to give me a list of where all the signs currently are, and then that way the borough solicitor can put together an ordinance for council to update the list. So that way, if the police ever get a call about someone parked in a snow emergency route during a snow emergency, they can actually enforce it, because there'd actually be an ordinance to enforce. So that's the proposal I have. I understand. I forget what street the resident asked about relocating. Williams, that's correct. And I can definitely understand, their concern with the parking situation there and all that. However, speaking with the public works foreman, who is also the chief of our fire department, he just felt it was really important for general vehicle access as well as emergency vehicle access that no parking continue to remain on that street.
Could we ask for the plowing to be,
yes, I did notice.
Improved on that street, given how narrow it is?
I agree. Yeah, that was the biggest thing that struck me about the concern we received from that resident. And I did have a conversation with the public works foreman about that. So I do think for this winter, we can try to do some different things with the plowing. And hopefully that will address the concern that came up, while allowing us to continue to have that as a snow emergency route.
I think that's key, because if you're going to be if you're a resident on that particular block or block like that one, by the time you move the key for a snow event, by the time you move your car for a snow event, and then the snow event's over, you want to be able to move your car back again after the street's been nicely plowed. And I think that's the benefit to the resident for going to the effort of moving their car. Is that the point you're kind of making?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the residents were stating that the plowing was not done up to the curb.
Right. So
there was piles of snow, not enough space to park, and
It's tough to do without the bobcat, because or like a loader, because the snow's going to go on the sidewalk if you plow it up to the curb. And so then the residents have to put it somewhere with their shovel, and I live on a block like that too, and there's no place to put it. So maybe that's one of those blocks in particular, because it's a snow emergency route, that they can use a loader.
That's exactly what I was going to propose, Councilmember Weisford. I lived in a borough like Narberth before working here, and that was a challenge where I lived as well. I had to park on the street, and sometimes after I moved my car, when I moved back to where I usually park, it was a lot harder, because you could tell where people been parked before, because there was like a wall of snow, it was almost like parking stalls. But
Right.
But I think given the small area we're talking about, we could look into using the loader in that area.
Okay, good. So,
Rob?
yes, go ahead, Barbara.
One thought occurred to me Samantha, when you said that we don't know where all the signs are that say snow emergency route. I know that there was a time, I don't know, 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, or 2017, where there were interns that were helping put together all the GIS data for the borough. And I know they were doing something with signs, but were they marking down just, there's a sign here? Or did they mark down the type of sign that's there? So I'm wondering if that exists somewhere, like an inventory like that, in that GIS data that's either, and I didn't even think of it till now, but I know I can look at a lot of that online. Maybe that's helpful as well.
Yeah, that's really good to know. Thank you for, thanks for sharing that.
And Bob, correct me if I'm remembering that wrong, but I don't think I am.
No, that's what I remember too, and they actually, I think they may have geolocated each of the signs and then also keyed them.
Oh, awesome.
So Matt West would know.
Yes.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is communicate with the homeowners on Williams that had emailed the committee.
That'd be awesome.
Just to explain the solution that we have come up with, and if we continue to have trouble this winter, then we would revisit it again.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so I guess the last item is the traffic concerns.
Sure. Chief, I don't know if you want me to kind of lightning round these, and you're welcome to
Sure.
follow up on this. So the quickest one I guess to talk about is Woodside and South Narber 3.2. My credit again to the police department and the public works department. The public works department on their own initiative did some research on parking near intersections and found that PennDOT regulations, which I provided in the memo to you all, is that I believe, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the memo in front of me. There's no parking allowed within 20 feet of any intersection in general, and no parking within 30 feet of an intersection that has a traffic device at it. And so the request from the resident, we were able to install no parking signs within 20 feet of the intersection, and we think that is taking care of the concern that was raised.
This is which one, I'm sorry?
3.2.
Okay.
So looking at the PennDOT regulations, we did put up a no parking sign 20 feet from the intersection, which is kind of what the resident wanted.
And just to add, Samantha, the resident that filed that complaint, I was in direct communication with, not only in person, but following up after Fran notified me that that was up. So they're completely satisfied with the borough's response.
Right.
Okay.
Is that because it was blocking the visibility of like the turning?
Yeah, no, what was happening was the bigger vehicles, including school buses, were actually trying to navigate that turn, and if there was cars parked too close to that corner, they were actually edging that person's property as they took that turn, and they were actually coming across their pavement and their grass area, and the person even put like a flexible traffic code device up there, and he would just run right over that. So if those cars were parked too close to the corner, there was no way that a bus could maneuver that going from South Norfolk Avenue onto the street. It would just run right across his property.
Thanks.
With traffic concern 3.1, Sabine Avenue. So the Public Works Department hasn't, per our last meeting, the Public Works Department has installed the traffic counting device on Sabine Avenue. I'm having a little bit of a technical issue accessing the data on the device, so I'm working to get that resolved. But I do expect to have it resolved in time to provide data for the November 3rd meeting, as we originally discussed. And once we have that data, we can actually figure out how to solve, figure out the extent of the problem and then an appropriate solution based on that.
So does that device actually, it can distinguish between traffic going west or eastbound?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then for 3.3, Haverford Ave and Essex Ave, darn it, I actually met with the traffic engineer earlier today to talk about the Haverford bike lane project. And we walked all the way up to Essex, and I completely forgot. I was going to ask him what he thought about the complaint we got about that intersection, and I forgot to ask him about that. So I will follow up again with him, and we'll see what his suggestions are on that, as we talked about last month.
What happens there?
There was the concern we received was that that there are people turning right there. somewhat recklessly. And I think there was a request for signage. Let's see here real quick.
Oh, I know, right. This is,
Trucks from the construction site parked at Haverford, here I go. Trucks at the construction site parked at the corner of Haverford Essex, blocking visibility to cars turning right on Essex.
you know, this might not be the time to discuss this, but we should really talk about either parklet or some kind of like bump out improvement, like planting, you know, for when the new building's there. And there's like an opportunity that in some of the renderings they show it, and in some of the plans they don't show it. You know, to make that corner, build that corner out and narrow the crosswalk. And
I mean, I would love, as we talked about, you know, road paving long term, to implement improvements like that. And I did talk about bump outs on Haverford with the traffic engineer earlier today.
And since they're going to be rebuilding all that curb line and that sidewalk anyway, it'd be kind of a nice opportunity to look at it before they complete it.
Yeah.
So Samantha, I imagine the complaint at Haverford and North Essex is people coming down Haverford Avenue and they're taking that turn too quickly onto North Essex?
No, sorry, I misunderstood it. It's that because of where construction vehicles were parked, people turning right wouldn't be able to see if pedestrians were there. I don't know if that's resolved itself because of where the construction's at or not. We did originally get this complaint 2 months ago. And the request was if we would put a stop sign, a temporary stop sign at Haverford and Essex, that way people would have to stop, look, and then turn right. And I wanted the traffic engineer to weigh in on whether that made sense or not.
Kind of the same reason this temporary stop was added at Forest and Windsor.
Yeah, and the person actually explicitly referenced that
Oh, okay.
as a precedent for us doing that there. So that will maybe put a pin in, and I'll talk more with the traffic engineer and can have a better opinion on that, more informed opinion next month. And then with Windsor Ave, I might need the chief's help with this one because I do think the police have been really helpful on this. We received a concern that over on Windsor Ave, that people were just like blowing through the crosswalk near Norfolk Park and Windsor Avenue. And I do believe in response to that a month or two ago, I believe, Chief, that you had some officers, you know, to keep more of an eye on that area and that sort of thing to help alleviate that problem.
Just to let you know, that's always one of our steadfast areas. We go out there and we do a lot of traffic enforcement at Norfolk Park, right where that complaint is generated. We're always worried about that because of the playground and a lot of children activity right there back and forth going across the street. And that includes school bus discharges as well, which are nearby. So that is one of our areas of concern. I think that will continue to be an area of concern just based on its location. You know, and we have oversized stop signs there, and people are still ignoring, you know, that oversized stop sign.
Yeah, I would love to, maybe once we finish doing some data collection on Sabine, maybe putting the speed and traffic counter. I mean, I think we know we'll find, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to get the speed and traffic data from Windsor and that location as well. And it might be something where we, for that one, maybe we, after we collect some data, maybe we turn on the thing that tells you the speed you're going, or put the other one up, you know, that doesn't collect data, just with that to see if that helps or not.
Okay.
But we'll get there when we get there.
It also might be a thing where we'd want to paint the side, you know, paint stop in front of the stop bar. You know, like that type of, since the oversized stop sign seems, I don't know if they make a larger stop sign than that.
Yeah,
It's the one you paint on the street.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's everything that we can do tonight. And we'll plan to return to the inspection proposal for commercial property and residential rental in November.
And I do know, sorry if I'm getting ahead of you, we do have public comment, and we do have one
right.
member from the public here tonight.
Okay, yes, thank you. All right, let's take public comment before we adjourn.
Good. Good evening. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, sure. Hi. How are you? David Bordeaux, 104 Chestnut Avenue. The only public comment or question I have is, when I'm looking at the comprehensive plan, this kind of came up from the Elmwood Avenue development. Has the borough conducted a traffic circulation audit with the new residences that are coming into the borough?
Sorry, David, were you referring to which property were you referring to?
I'm speaking about actually all of them. I mean, it looks like with new developments we have coming into the borough, I'll give you some, I guess, maybe some background. When I read the parking study report, it said in here, I don't know if you all had read it, but it said that the state standard for a minimum roadway width to permit two-way traffic and parking on both sides of the street is 32 feet, but many of Narberth roadways do not meet this standard. And then I read down further, it says the first recommendation calls for the borough taking into account vehicular traffic direction. I then looked at another page on the report. It said developers in many municipalities are often required to submit traffic impact studies to estimate additional vehicle volumes. Narberth may choose to request developers as part of the development approval process. It says here, because the adding to local roadways and to account for local infrastructure improvements that need to be constructed to accommodate the increased vehicle usage. So then when I went back and then I looked at, since the passage of the form-based zoning code, we have 114 Forest Avenue, 100 Forest Avenue, 203 Haverford, 650 Montgomery, 146 Marion, 230 Haverford, 198 Elmwood, 32 Sabine, and I do not believe that there were any traffic studies conducted associated with any of these developments. And if my math is right, it's somewhere between 100 and 125 additional units. So my question is, have we conducted this traffic circulation audit? It's actually listed as a high priority as part of the comprehensive plan. Council references the comprehensive plan a lot, and so it was a high priority. And so my concern in the neighborhood I live in, I've seen cars zip up and down the streets. It's a little bit slower now with the bridge closed, but when that opens up again, are we doing anything right now to be proactive? Kind of like how we're being proactive with installing EV charging stations. What are we doing proactively to address the additional cars that are coming? I even go back to February 2000.
Dave,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we do have our next meeting in just a minute, so I want to let the manager respond.
Yeah, so as we
Great.
talked about, good evening, David. As we talked about at the infrastructure meeting last week, when you brought up that very valid concern, borough staff are working on an update to the subdivision land development ordinance, which is going to be presented to the planning commission in the next, probably definitely by the end of the year. And one of the changes in that is going to be to require a traffic study from any new land development. So I think what you're saying is definitely important, and we definitely do want to address that concern.
Sure, and Ms. Bryan, I appreciate that. I'm glad you're all doing it. I guess my question for the committee, because it's public safety, is what is public safety doing to address the development that has already been approved and coming before, because they did none of the parking, I guess none of the traffic studies were required beforehand. I know I brought up the infrastructure, but it now seems to be a public safety matter. I mean, I almost saw my son get hit by a car one day about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I don't want to have to see it again.
Yeah. Dave, thank you. Let us add that to our agenda for public health and safety, and we can discuss it. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that because the Planning Commission brought up in a meeting back in 2017.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you bringing that to
Thank
us.
you.
We're going to sign off
Thank
now.
you. Understood. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you all.